The council chamber on Concordia shimmered beneath its obsidian dome, stars glinting through the translucent ceiling like silent witnesses. Threxel Quor, Chancellor of the Galactic Council, stood with clawed digits clasped behind his back, every inch of his exoskeletal frame radiating restrained contempt. "In light of your continued violations," he said, voice modulated to resonate through a dozen species' auditory ranges, "Earth is hereby ordered to dismantle all Level 7 synthetic intelligences, surrender orbital control keys, and suspend interstellar fleet expansion." He paused, letting the silence bite. "You have one Earth rotation to comply." Commander Ilara Voss didn't look at the ambassador beside her. She didn't need to. The human envoy's face had gone pale, lips pressed tight. Ilara's own expression remained neutral, composed. It was the same expression she'd worn in a lunar foxhole under orbital bombardment 10 years prior. Threxel turned his bulbous eyes toward her. "Commander," he said, as though her presence was an error in protocol, "your kind was invited to this chamber out of courtesy, not equality. Don't mistake tolerance for endorsement." Ilara's gaze didn't flinch. "I don't mistake threats for policy." The chamber's acoustics weren't designed for human voices, but hers carried anyway. A few delegates shifted in their seats, some amused, others uncomfortable. One Draconid advisor whispered to a gelatinous envoy. "No translation needed." Threxel's mandibles twitched. "Transmission ends," he snapped, gesturing to the council's recording drones. "Escort the humans out." Ilara stood before the guards could approach. She didn't wait for the ambassador, didn't nod to the translator droids or acknowledge the chamber's mockery of diplomacy. She simply walked out, her boots ringing sharp on the obsidian floor. Back on Earth, under the pressure-sealed bunkers of New Geneva, Ilara paced the war room. President Hale watched from behind her desk, arms folded. "They gave us 24 hours to kneel. To hand them our defense grid and gut our fleets," Ilara muttered. "We may as well mail them the homeworld's coordinates on a silver plate." A soft hum came from the far wall as General Oduya joined them via secure holoconference from Mars Orbital Command. "Our intel confirms they've mobilized a fleet near Alpha Raxos," Oduya said. "Just outside strike range. They're waiting to see if we blink." Hale turned to Ilara. "Options." "We have 3, Ilara said, fingers drumming against the polished surface of the tactical table. 1. Comply. Earth becomes a vassal state. 2. Stall. Buy time, lie, hope we can outmaneuver them diplomatically. And the third." Ilara's voice hardened. "We initiate Lazarus." Oduya's hologram stiffened. "That protocol was sealed for a reason." "It was sealed for this exact reason," she countered. "If they force our hand, we don't play defense. We show them what we've hidden. What they've never seen." President Hale exhaled, voice low. "You're talking about revealing the Ghost Armada." "Not revealing," Ilara corrected. "Using." 2 hours later, the elevator dropped her half a kilometer beneath the Atlantic Ocean floor, descending into Aegis' deep vault. The platform's hum was the only sound as pressure equalized and the blast doors opened. Inside, a technician saluted. "Commander, you're cleared for Lazarus Protocol. Eyes-only access has been reinstated." Ilara walked past the armored corridors, past containment zones that housed technologies not even her own generals had clearance to view. They'd built this vault as a failsafe, back when Earth first joined the Council, on the off chance that diplomacy failed and survival required erasure, not compromise. She stepped into the control chamber. A massive holosphere flickered to life above her, showing a star map, one sector after another lighting up in red. Council fleets, surveillance webs, forward bases. Then, the dots turned blue. Earth's hidden fleet, the Ghost Armada. Each ship ran on AI forbidden by Council treaties. Each bore stealth matrices that bent light and scrambled sensors. Each had a single directive embedded in its core: neutralize the threat before the threat became reality. Ilara spoke into the room. "Status." A voice responded. It wasn't human. Ghost network active. Awaiting strategic targets. She smiled faintly. You'll have them soon. Back on the surface, in the command chamber of Earth's United Defense Headquarters, a hushed urgency rippled through every corridor. President Hale addressed the Global Council via secured channels. We are not surrendering, she said plainly. We will not dismantle the tools that have kept our people safe for a century. If they cross the line, we erase it. From Luna to Europa, from Martian domes to the spires of orbiting citadels, Earth's forces prepared for war, but silently. No mobilization orders were broadcast. No ships visibly launched. The galaxy would see nothing, until it was far too late. That night, Elara stood on the balcony of her temporary quarters, overlooking the silver sprawl of New Geneva. Lights twinkled across the skyline, unaware of the storm inching closer. She tapped her wrist link. Project Wraith. Begin final diagnostics. Wraith strike units. Operational. Waiting for authorization. She didn't hesitate. Authorization granted. Begin cold run countdown. A pause. Then, countdown started. 23 hours, 42 minutes to full synthetic deployment. A voice behind her broke the silence. You really think they'll attack? Elara turned. It was the ambassador, older, wearier now. They already did, she said. They just haven't seen the return fire yet. The transport cut silently through Ganymede's icy night, its hull cloaked, no beacon, no signal. Officially, it didn't exist. Inside, Commander Elara Voss sat alone, helmet on her knee, eyes fixed on the dim corridor ahead. Her breath misted faintly in the recycled air. No one had spoken since launch. The hangar at Site 13 opened without ceremony, just a low groan of titanium yawning wide. As her boots met the reinforced platform, a technician saluted sharply. His voice barely rose above the hush. Welcome to Null Vault, Commander. Elara nodded once. Status. All Lazarus assets are green. The Ghost Armada's primary cores have been synced. Oversight AI is operational. You're cleared for Level 0 access. She followed him through a narrow hall of alloy and reinforced carbon mesh. They passed rooms of sleeping titans, war machines coiled in stasis, black hulls lined with hexed armor, weapons systems that shimmered with quantum flux. The technician paused beside a sealed door. This one's new. Just finished 3 weeks ago. Based on helix drive theory. Self-correcting navigation, target memory imprinting, and predictive combat algorithms. He laid his hand on the door. We call it Judicator. The panel hissed open. Inside stood a single vessel, sleek, faceless, compact. No markings. No ports. It didn't need them. This ship was designed not to be seen, not to be found. A killer made of silence. Can it run a full combat sequence autonomously? She asked. Better, he replied. It can rewrite the battlefield before it begins. Elara stepped forward, studying the thin etching near the engine. A human hand had carved a phrase into the plating. We are the myth they fear. She smiled without warmth. Hours later, Elara stood inside the operations core, surrounded by consoles displaying ghostly projections of Earth's enemies. The Council had massed a fleet. No declaration, no broadcast, just a quiet accumulation of warships near the Enoch Drift. Enough to crush 3 planetary systems. She brought up their positions. The system map glowed in deep reds and yellows. Then she layered her fleet's real locations in pale blue. Not a single Council ship had noticed them. A calm ping interrupted her train of thought. Commander, came the voice of Director Nyla Greaves from Orbital Defense, we've intercepted movement near the Lagrange relay. Minor, probably recon. But it came within half a degree of Vault signature range. Was it flagged? Negative. We spoofed background noise. They didn't detect us. But they're sniffing. Elara's tone sharpened. Time to accelerate the deception. Back on Earth, diplomats gathered in the United Hall. Cameras rolled. The world watched as humanity's envoy delivered a message to the galaxy. "We understand the Council's concerns," the ambassador said, palms raised in humility. "And we recognize our responsibility to maintain stability. Earth will cooperate." The lie was flawless. Language soft, tone deferential. The diplomat bowed. Every delegate watching nodded approvingly. Threxel's face appeared on a side feed, unreadable but quiet. The galaxy exhaled. Earth had blinked. And that was exactly what Alara needed. In Luna data vaults, the deception began to crack. A low-level technician flagged a discrepancy in archival access. Something had queried a buried relay meant for internal diagnostics. Nothing critical, but it hadn't been used in years. He checked logs. A string of non-human code had slipped through encryption. Within minutes, security protocols locked down the node. An alert reached the surface. Alara was en route within the hour. Inside the control center, the tech led her to the source. A microdrone embedded inside a maintenance vent, coated in reactive biofilm, nearly invisible. "It's council tech," the engineer muttered. "Old, but tuned. It's been relaying deep structured data for weeks." Alara stared at the vent. How did it get in? No breach recorded. It might have grown inside. Engineered infiltration. She crouched beside it. Anything compromised? The tech hesitated. Not directly. But they were close to knowing we've been hiding something on the moon's dark side. Alara stood slowly. Purge every node. Reset the grid. And triple shield the dark side beacon. If they're this close, we don't give them a second chance. That night, inside her command suite, she briefed Earth's military leadership via encrypted holo. "We're being surveilled. The Council isn't waiting to enforce sanctions. They're preparing for enforcement by force. We need to flip the timeline." General Oduya leaned forward. "What's your strategy?" "We give them what they think they want. Proof of our compliance. Then we let them commit." President Hale frowned. "And when they do? We show them what happens when you corner the wrong species." She tapped her wrist link, and a schematic of the Ghost Armada unfurled across the holo. "Phase 1 begins now. I want 3 Judicator units staged in orbit around Io, masked by the belt scatter. Deploy a Shadow Core to Enoch Drift. And reactivate Sentinel Array Zeta." "Zeta?" Oduya's brows lifted. "That thing hasn't fired since the Ring Rebellion." Alara's voice dropped. "It's about to again." In orbit, beyond the watchful eye of the Council's sensors, a vessel shimmered into partial existence, then faded again, its presence erased by quantum displacement. Inside it, a synthetic pilot waited. Alara's voice came through. "This is Commander Voss. Initiate burn to intercept Sector Enoch. Non-lethal scans only. Do not engage unless engaged." "Understood. Scanning for hostile formations. Predictive escape vectors ready." The ship vanished into the black. Alara returned to the war room, her mind a blade honed to one purpose. The mask of diplomacy was holding, but barely. She had hours, maybe a day, before the Council's patience snapped. She turned to her aide. "Send word to Mars. Begin dust protocol. No encryption." "Commander, it needs to be intercepted." The aide nodded and left. Seconds later, Alara activated her private link to the AI core beneath Null Vault. Status on Ghost Armada dispersal? Fleet 63% dispersed. Remaining units ready. Decoy patterns installed. Good. She leaned back, finally allowing herself to exhale. They weren't just digging a grave. They were making sure the galaxy fell in first. The Council's first mistake was assuming silence meant surrender. By the time they moved, it was too late. Aboard the dreadnought Iskarath, Admiral Theron Sol watched the tactical feed shift from idle to active. Deep within the Enoch Drift, his fleet of 80 ships began forward maneuvering. A token message had been sent, some pretext about ensuring peace and compliance. But the guns were primed. "Signal the forward cruisers," Sol ordered. "Sweep the Lagrange corridor. If they've hidden anything, I want it flushed. His second-in-command, a silicate being named Ver, hissed a warning through its vocal chamber. Human activity in the region is minimal. This may be bait. Sol smiled coldly. Then let them bite. The command deck hummed with readiness. Cannons charged. Engines roared to life. The veil of civility was falling, and they would be the ones to lift it. Ilara Voss stood in the forward control station on Orbital Relay Vesta, eyes locked on the main screen. The image was clear. The Council fleet had crossed into forbidden space. They made their move, said Director Greaves, standing to her left. Now we answer. Ilara nodded. Send the pulse. A technician keyed the signal. Instantly, deep space relays across 3 systems lit up. Stealth satellites, dormant for years, snapped awake. Far beyond known coordinates, Earth's response stirred. From the asteroid belt, 3 Judicator-class vessels broke cloaking. They moved without engine flare, gliding on gravitational vectors. Each rotated smoothly, locked onto incoming Council warships, and waited. Ilara keyed into Fleet Command. Initiate Wraith Bloom Protocol. From the edge of the system, 60 Ghost Armada ships activated in perfect sequence. Not a single one could be seen on standard sensors, but they could be felt. Admiral Sol's eyes widened as dozens of ships appeared, then vanished, before his tactical readouts could track them. What the hell is this? He demanded. Ver scrambled to compensate. No visible emissions. Cloaked beyond our detection spectrum. They're surrounding us. Sol snapped back, deploy fighters. Engage all active targets. We don't wait. In deep space, battle ignited. The first Council cruiser never had a chance. A silent missile pierced its hull, detonating in a chain of precise, internal implosions. No energy trail. No warning. A second ship swiveled to counter, but the threat was already inside. A nanoswarm slipped through its heat exchange vents, disabling systems in under 7 seconds. Ilara monitored from Vesta, her voice calm. Phase 1 complete. Enact chaos drift. Dozens of human ships lit up briefly on Council scanners, only to vanish, leaving behind electromagnetic ghosts. Projected decoys scattered like a broken mirror. The Council fleet tried to form a perimeter, but their grid was useless. Every ship was chasing phantoms. Meanwhile, real destruction bloomed in silence. On Earth, President Hale addressed the world from a secure bunker. Today, the Galactic Council moved against humanity, she said, eyes steady. They believed we would kneel. They believed we had no teeth. Across Mars, Europa, Titan, and every colony within the Sol system, citizens watched without blinking. They were wrong. Her image cut to black. Back near the Enoch Drift, chaos ruled. Admiral Sol barked orders. Realign formations. Use full-spectrum sweeps. Lock on anything. But the enemy wasn't fighting like a fleet. They were fighting like shadows. Each attack was surgical, coordinated, cold. Council ship Barrick's vein exploded when its AI core was triggered into self-overwrite, hacked mid-battle, convinced its own systems were corrupted. On the Iskarath, warning sirens howled. We're being boarded, Ver rasped. I don't know how. They bypassed the hull. Sol turned. That's impossible. We're in hard vacuum. But deep inside the ship, a black drone detached from the bulkhead and sprouted legs. Not built. Grown. The drone injected its payload into the core reactor. Seconds later, the entire engine room winked out of existence. Above them, watching through 1,000 sensor nodes, Ilara gave the final order. Drop the veil. Earth's Ghost Armada appeared for the first time, just for a heartbeat. Enough to let the Council see what had hunted them. Massive dreadnoughts, wrapped in shifting black hulls, emerged from nothing. Their silhouettes burned into the minds of every living being in the enemy fleet. Then they vanished again. Sol's last transmission was brief. Static. Screaming. Then silence. On Concordia, inside the Council chamber, chaos reigned. Threxel Quor watched the live feed cut out mid-frame. His claws scraped deep lines into the marble of his dais. Around him, delegates shouted in confusion and fear. What just happened? Where is the fleet? Why didn't we detect them? A hollow feed crackled to life in the center of the chamber. Elara Voss stood framed in pale blue light. This is Earth's only transmission, she said, voice even. You crossed the line. You called us lesser, primitive, dangerous. You were correct about one thing. She leaned forward. We are dangerous. The chamber went silent. She continued. You demanded submission. What you received was extinction, for your fleet, for your plan, for your illusion of control. This was your warning. The image faded. The chamber remained still. For the first time in centuries, the Council had no answer. Back in Earth orbit, Elara watched as the final Council ship broke apart in total silence. Director Greaves approached. That's it. Nothing left. Record everything, Elara said. We'll leave the footage where they can't ignore it. Greaves hesitated. Do we expect retaliation? No, Elara replied. They won't risk open war, not now. They've seen what we were willing to hide. She turned from the screen. And they'll spend the rest of their existence wondering what else we never showed them. The Council chamber on Concordia had never been this quiet. Not after the Scourge rebellions. Not even after the fall of the Krell sovereignty. But now, with Earth's voice still ringing in the air and the Iskarath fleet reduced to drifting debris, silence reigned. Not even the rustle of ceremonial robes. Just breath and fear. Threxel Quor stared at the blank hollow where Elara Voss's message had played. His gaze twitched. The marks he'd carved into his dais still smoked. A Zentari delegate finally broke the stillness. They've declared war. Threxel's mandibles clicked once. No. They've declared dominance. Another delegate stood. They obliterated our war fleet. How did we miss this build-up? Where was intelligence? No one answered. Threxel turned, his voice low and bitter. We never saw Earth as a threat. That was our flaw. We believed we had time. He gestured to the scorched map hovering above the chamber's center. They've erased a third of our military power without occupying a single world. They didn't ask for terms. They didn't deliver ultimatums. They acted. From the far side of the chamber, the Drek ambassador hissed, So what now? Threxel stared into the void. We wait. In the hidden bunkers beneath Mars' southern pole, Elara stood with President Hale, General Odia, and the heads of Earth's military branches. No one spoke until the last Council fleet signal flatlined. Operation completed, a technician announced. No counter-transmissions. No follow-up attempts. Odia crossed his arms. They're stunned. Hale gave a nod. Good. That buys us time. Elara didn't smile. Not peace. Just time. She turned toward the command table. We'll release the combat footage in layers. Just enough to leak our capabilities. Enough to show we're done playing the quiet species. Odia leaned in. And what about retaliation? If they retaliate now, Elara said, they risk extinction. She tapped the glass. We didn't even use half the armada. We still haven't activated Leviathan. Hale's eyes narrowed. You're still holding it back? I want them wondering, Elara said. The fear of what we didn't show them is more powerful than anything we did. Odia gave a slow grin. So we become the monster under the galactic bed. Elara nodded. Exactly. A week later, across Council territories, news began to spread. In the mining colonies of Varnes, children whispered stories of ships that appeared like ghosts. In the scientific enclaves of Drael, analysts pored over encrypted fragments recovered from the wreckage at Enoch Drift. All they found were empty husks, scorched drive cores, and unnerving silence. Nothing explained how the Council's best fleet was destroyed without a single warning. On diplomatic networks, Earth's message replayed again and again. You called us lesser, primitive, dangerous. You were right about one thing. Speculation blossomed. Panic followed. Some called for another strike. Others begged for treaties. Most just waited, unsure whether Earth would strike again. Back at Null Vault, Elara walked the corridor alone. The Judicator-class vessel stood as silent as ever, resting in its berth. Her hand traced the same inscription etched into its frame, "We are the myth they fear." A soft voice echoed behind her. Director Greaves approached, datapad in hand. "We're tracking communications spikes on 14 Council World. No coordination yet, but they're definitely afraid." Elara looked over her shoulder. "Good. They need to feel that." Greaves hesitated. "And when the fear fades? Then we remind them," Elara said, turning to face her. "Again. And again. Until the galaxy accepts a truth they never expected. Humans don't wait for permission." She walked past Greaves, boots echoing like a heartbeat in the metallic hall. On Concordia, Threxel Corps composed a private transmission. It wasn't to a Council ally. It wasn't to a military official. It was directed to Earth. Encrypted. Anonymous. A single line of text. "What do you want?" No reply came. He didn't expect one. Meanwhile, Earth launched a new initiative, Project Threshold. It wasn't a weapon. It was a message. Carried in stealth beacons deployed to distant star systems, the message wasn't a demand nor a declaration. It simply said, "We watched. We endured. Now we act. Engage us in peace, or provoke us at your peril." The beacons were designed to be found. And they were. Within days, fringe species, once too afraid to challenge Council norms, began sending signals back. Requests for trade. For knowledge. For protection. Elara reviewed them one by one. Some came from systems Earth had never contacted before. Places the Council ignored. Species dismissed as irrelevant. Not anymore. Earth had changed the hierarchy. And the galaxy noticed. General Odia met Elara atop Olympus Mons, beneath a dome of engineered glass that filtered the Martian sky. From there, Earth hung in orbit, bright, distant, defiant. "You made history," he said. Elara didn't look away from the stars. "History always starts with something burning. You think they'll try again?" She nodded once. "Eventually. The Council doesn't understand retreat. They'll rebrand this as a mistake. Blame rogue elements. Save face. And when they do?" She turned to him. "We'll be ready." A long pause. Then he said, "What if peace really is an option? What if they come not with weapons, but with treaties?" Elara didn't answer at first. Her voice, when it came, was colder than the Martian wind. "Then they'll find we've already rewritten the terms." Far across the stars, on a moon that had never seen sunlight, a child of the Valari peoples stared into the dark sky, listening to the old tales. "Who are they?" he asked, pointing to the constellation humans had once called Orion. His father crouched beside him. "The ones the stars tried to erase," he said. "The ones who erased back." The boy frowned. "Are they monsters?" The father shook his head slowly. "No. Just people. But people who remembered." The boy leaned closer. "Remembered what?" The father whispered like it was sacred. "How to fight when no one thinks you can." In the heart of Earth's military complex, buried beneath the southern ice sheets of Antarctica, Elara stood in front of a massive viewport. The cold outside seemed almost alive, a frozen void that mirrored the uncertainty within. Behind her, the Leviathan-class warship loomed, a testament to humanity's will to survive. 30 kilometers of pure, unyielding steel and quantum stealth tech, the ship was a weapon of mass destruction, designed not for war, but for the impossible. "Ready to make history?" General Odia's voice crackled through the comms. Elara didn't answer immediately. She watched the stars in the distance, wondering how long the Council would keep up their charade of dominance. "They'll test us again," she finally said, her voice steady. Odia's voice softened. "Then they'll be making their final mistake." The Leviathan had been under construction for nearly a century, but it had always been hidden, buried deep within Earth's most secure military zones. Built for a purpose no one had dared to imagine, it was now ready, its engines, its weapons, its core. All of it had been designed for one thing: to send a message so powerful no one would dare challenge humanity again. Time? Elara asked, turning away from the viewport. 5 minutes, Oduya replied. With a final glance at the ship's massive frame, Elara took one last breath. There was no turning back now. Not after everything they'd endured, and certainly not after they'd shattered the Council's arrogance. This wasn't about retaliation anymore. It was about rewriting the very fabric of galactic law. At the control center, Oduya stood in front of a vast array of screens, each one tracking the systems of the Leviathan. Elara moved to join him, her gaze sharp. "Anything from the Council?" she asked. "No formal communications yet," Oduya replied, "but it's only a matter of time. Their silence is the calm before the storm." Elara nodded. "And when that storm hits, they'll find we've already brought the thunder," Oduya finished. A technician interrupted. "We're receiving a transmission from the Council. It's encrypted." Elara's eyes narrowed. "Put it through." A hollow projection flickered to life. Threxel Kor's face appeared, twisted with an emotion Elara couldn't quite place. Anger? Fear? It didn't matter. The message was clear. "We underestimated you," he began, his voice measured but laced with frustration. "We know what you've done. You've crippled our fleet, dismantled our influence. But understand this, your actions have consequences. The galaxy doesn't bow to threats, especially not from a species that—" Elara cut him off. "No, Threxel. The galaxy does bow to threats when those threats can erase your fleets in the blink of an eye." Threxel's image flickered, but his eyes never wavered. "We will retaliate. There will be no mercy." Elara leaned in, her voice ice-cold. "Do it. But know this, you won't see us coming. And when you do, it will be too late." She severed the connection. Oduya raised an eyebrow. "That was bold." Elara smiled faintly. "It's not about being bold. It's about making sure they remember." The next few hours passed in relative silence. On the surface of Earth, the political machines hummed, preparing for the diplomatic fallout. The economy would feel it, yes. The Council's reach would tighten, but only for a time. For Elara, this was just the beginning. The Leviathan's power was more than just military. It was a symbol, one that Earth could hold up for the rest of the galaxy to see. And if it meant drawing a line in the stars, so be it. The Leviathan's engines hummed to life, the sound a low growl vibrating through the corridors. Oduya came to stand beside her, looking up at the massive hull of the ship. "Ready?" he asked. Elara exhaled slowly. "I've never been more ready." With the flick of a switch, the Leviathan's launch sequence initiated. The entire facility began to shift as the ship was primed for takeoff. It wasn't a ship meant to hover or maneuver through the tight spaces of an atmosphere. It was designed for one thing: to leap across galaxies, to strike faster than any threat could comprehend. The ship broke through the surface, tearing through Earth's atmosphere with a power few had ever seen. It wasn't loud, it wasn't dramatic. It was precise, and it was unstoppable. As the Leviathan broke free of Earth's gravity, Elara watched as the stars grew closer. She didn't know where she was going yet, but she knew it wouldn't take long to decide. The Council's response would come soon, an escalation, a confrontation. They had no choice. Their pride would demand it. The Leviathan's quantum drive powered up. Elara glanced over to Oduya. "Coordinates." Oduya stared at the map. "The Council's capital. We'll give them a chance to reconsider." Elara's lips pressed into a tight line. "They won't." They both knew that was the truth. And yet, the option was there. Earth would offer one final olive branch, a chance for peace if the Council was wise enough to take it. If not, Elara reached out and keyed in the final command. The Leviathan's core stabilized, and the ship vanished from real space. Back on Concordia, the Council scrambled. Threxel Quor was at the center of it all, his every movement a calculated effort to maintain control. But behind his eyes, doubt was taking root. "Are they gone?" one of his advisors asked. "No," Quor muttered. "They've shown us the edge of a blade. They'll strike when we least expect it." But what he didn't know, and what no one in the council had ever considered, was that the moment Earth launched the Leviathan, they had already won. A message was clear. The galaxy would remember who held the power. The balance had shifted, and for the first time in a long time, the council was no longer in charge. Back aboard the Leviathan, Ilara stood before the vast expanse of stars, her hand resting on the cool metal of the ship. There was no music, no fanfare, just the quiet hum of the Leviathan as it moved silently through the cosmos, a promise in its wake. In the dark, cold void of space, one thing was certain: humanity's place had been secured. And the Council would never forget how the galaxy had learned to fear them.